talk about the recent student protests
Yes.
that really brought the streets of Braamfontein to a standstill. How did you have to manage that situation? Because it seemed like it was literally out of control. Motorists were attacked, businesses were targeted as well. What kind of decision making came into play there?
Mishina, it's very unfortunate when the protests were still inside the campus. If I could use the term, it was perhaps more manageable from the point of public order policing, because it's really within a limited confines.
Sure.
But when the protest broke out, and this is where I started to give a different definition of violence, it was no longer a peaceful demonstration. If I could just paint the picture for you, I was on the ground when this violence broke out. I made sure that I went to the street and see for my own eyes what was exactly happening. I saw protesters, or criminals in fact, they've rolled these concrete dustbin the city have placed all over the street as barricades. They've managed to drag out steel structures. And what was quite shocking for me was that paving on the pavements, bricks, and these decorative features on the side of the road where we have, these rock displays.
Sure.
They were used as weapons, as things to destroy. So it was really shocking to see the extent, and I saw it with my own eyes that these protests stoned vehicles.
Yeah. I mean, I was there as well.
Yeah,
we were
you would
caught
have
in the
seen.
crossfire. We had to turn around immediately to avoid it, and we were actually scared.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
It was not a place to be for any body.
I also met up with the mayor,
Yes.
Herman Mashaba, who actually went out to speak to business owners, and he said that he wants to give them a guarantee that this will never happen again. But at what point should the police step in from a legal perspective, or can they actually step in to avoid this kind of situation in the future? Is it a manageable situation? And in light of what happened, what are some of the lessons you've learned?
Yes, I think, Nosha, let me speak on behalf of the JMPD. One of our core functions is crime prevention. And of course, together with the South African Police Services, SAPS, we jointly conduct a lot of operations. In this case of the student protest, SAPS headed the operation where JMPD plays more of a supportive role.
I understand, yeah.
But when it comes to crime prevention, we don't identify whether the person is a student or it could be just any thug on the street. We need to prevent that crime from happening. And we'll use as much power and authority and deterrent as we can to stop our innocent residents getting hurt, or property being damaged, or even looting from happening. So that we'll do our best to prevent that from happening. And in the unfortunate incident when it does happen, we'll do whatever we can to stop it, to make sure that the culprits are apprehended and brought to justice.
Michael, tell us about your priorities for the next 5 years. Have you identified any pressing issues that you would like to address immediately that will impact on public safety?
Yes. I'm very glad you asked the question. I've been identifying, or together with my colleagues, we've been identifying these problems for a long time. And if I could share with you our short-term plan, is that we are somehow being measured on a 100 days basis. And I'm very glad that we've made some inroads into the problems I identified. For example, bylaw enforcement. As you know, inner city, it's got a name, it's got a reputation. And I've now been there twice on my feet, walking the street, identifying the problems that we need to tackle. And I went there both during the day and at night. So bylaw enforcement, traffic management, drugs, illegal buildings are just some of the critical issues we've identified and working on it. We have an operation that focuses, particularly in the inner city. I unfortunately can't share a lot of details with you, But
I'm assuming that is where crime is at
yes,
its highest.
Yes, but we've identified blocks where we put in extra policing powers to sort out these problems, and we've achieved quite a bit of result. There's still a lot of room for improvement, but I've been watching, and if you use the term before and after photos, you really see the difference, and there's something that needs to be ongoing.
That's encouraging, because we need to clean out the inner city so it can become more livable for anyone.
And imagine that if we are able to tackle the problems in the inner city, other places shouldn't be so difficult in that sense of speaking. For me, it's simple. It's law and order. And our executive mayor, Councillor Herman Mashaba, says to me that, Michael, bring back law and order. So for me, the simple goal is to bring back law and order into our cities. And by doing that, we will simultaneously identify a lot of the social problems. Drugs is a huge concern for us, so it's something that we are really trying to tackle and just root out this problem from our society.
I think one of the challenges, perhaps you can agree with me or disagree with me if you like, that you face is also stamping out corruption and bribery amongst police officials, because that could hinder the process of fighting crime.
Absolutely.
How do you plan to deal with this to ensure that police officers are ethical when they're actually dealing with criminals and also ordinary residents of Johannesburg?
Yes. Let me make an admission to you that as a resident, I'm also a resident of Johannesburg, our police officers have not been given the image that they should be projecting. I always say that, be it SAPS, be it JMPD, the officers need to represent law and order. But where you have a situation where these limited numbers of officers are out there for their own personal gain, instead of, carrying out public policing, bringing back law and order, and, apprehending criminals, they're really going out there to seek, some money for themselves in the pocket. I was telling you that I was in the inner city the other day. I saw with my own eyes one of the police officers from JMPD taking a bribe. For me, that's just unacceptable, and I get very emotional about it. Here's our police force of about 3,000 officers. A lot of them work really, really hard. Noshana, I do this not because it's required of me, but I wanted to. I go to the ground, I speak to the officers. And last night I was out in Midrand, and it was just got a bit of the change in weather. It was really cold, and our officers working in the dark. They're having a roadblock, trying to, maybe check whether there's any stolen vehicles, illegal firearms, drunken driving. Our officers, and many of them really put their lives out first, and that includes the firefighters and paramedics. You would have heard that our paramedics go out and
there are many brave officers out there, and the one or two that are basically, not abiding by the ethics and code of conduct is really not doing justice to the whole force.
Yes.
But how would you deal with the police officer? Let's say the police officer you saw take that bribe. How would you deal with that?
I've taken a long way to answer your question, but let me answer your question. I've put my foot down very firmly, and the line has been drawn. I will not tolerate any of our police officers, in fact, any officers, and I said it, includes myself, including me, that we will not be corrupt. We need to be that department or that law enforcement agency or that service provider to the residents that when they look at us with respect. And you agree with me that respect is earned.
Sure.
It's not
Absolutely.
asked for. So that I do call on the public, if there's anything, any untowards behavior, be it taking a bribe, or the other day, our officers were caught by the public on a cell phone camera, parking in a handicapped parking zone whilst doing their own business. And that was sent to me, and we dealt with it swiftly.
Yeah.
So under my watch, in my term of office, that will not be tolerated, and I do request the public to assist us with it. Very soon we'll be launching an anti-corruption campaign. In fact, before the end of the month, I'll surely invite you to the event.
Sure, we'd love to attend.
This is where we're trying to act as a buffer between the supply and the market, to say that if you sign up as the anti-corruption ambassador with the city, you've got an obligation to report. So, and when these corrupt officers, few of them, try your hand or their hand at soliciting a bribe, and they see this identification, they'll think twice about it. So we're trying to cut somewhere in between to drown out this corrupt activity, and hopefully that we can really root out this corrupt behavior within our communities and of course within our department.
Sure, it's very encouraging. I think that's what really stands out for me about this administration. In the words of our new mayor, a public enemy number one is corruption. Absolutely. And it's refreshing that you can speak out on this so candidly. So thank you so much for your time. It was wonderful to meet with you, and we look forward to hearing more about your great work in this great city of ours.
Thank you very much. Thanks. I look forward to coming back again.
It's a big pleasure.